Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Bethanne, and today I am doing the superhero tag created by Barb and Isabella over at the font, and I was tagged by Roz at Scally Dandling about the books. So as usual, the questions, and I'll try to do timestamps too, will be down in the description box below. So the first question is, we are all special and unique. What are your unique special powers? So this is where I'm actually going to come out as a supervillain. Dun dun dun. So just thinking about sort of what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing, I decided to talk a little bit about killing bees, which is what I do for my day job. So this is also getting into question number 4. By day, you are a mild-mannered Clark Kent. What do you do when you aren't being a bookish superhero? So as I've mentioned before on this channel, I'm a bee scientist. I study our native wild bees in the US, and there are over 4,000 species in the lower 48, and there are at least 475 species in Minnesota alone, which is where I work currently. And one thing with bees is that they can be quite hard to identify to species, but if you're studying the diversity of bees, and if you're studying the special relationships between bees and plants, you need to know what bees you're looking at. And only a few experts can really truly identify every single bee that I catch over the course of a summer. And I'm very lucky that in my current position, I actually work directly with someone who can do that level of identification. So it's great, but it does mean that we kill bees for our projects. And of course, we try to minimize that. But that is my supervillain special power, is that I cause death on a somewhat large scale, and I enjoy it, and I'm good at it. So yeah, I thought I would just share a couple of pictures of just some of the ways that we catch bees. I didn't actually have a picture of myself using an insect net. We call it a hand net or a sweep net, but if you've ever seen in a book or in pop culture, I think butterfly nets are a little bit more common. So sort of an adaptation of that for bees. We swing with nets. We also have something called pan traps or bowl traps. So I'll put in a picture of those. They're just brightly colored bowls filled with a little bit of soapy water. The bees drown in them. In one of my current projects here in Minnesota, we actually use a vacuum to collect bees off of plants. So we do that when we don't want to damage the flower for some reason. And I couldn't find a picture of one of our vacuums, but just picture like a little handheld sort of dust devil, or like dust buster is usually what the brand names are, but just a little, you can just hold it in one hand, but then ours are modified so that there's a little tube at the end so that the bee gets sucked up into the tube, and we can take the tube off and get the bee into another jar that actually has the lethal chemicals in it. Mwahahaha. So I just have a picture of one of those little jars. Oh, and I should have mentioned, when we use the nets, you get your bee in the net, and then you put a jar up into the net to get your bee into that. So here is a picture of a bee in a little jar. These are both pictures of bumblebees, which, especially in Minnesota, we really don't kill because we have the endangered species, the endangered rusty patch bumblebee is around. So, and bumblebees are quite large. So with a fair amount of training and practice, people can learn to identify bumblebee species sort of by eye. So we will often sort of detain them using our collecting methods, but we won't actually kill them. We'll then release them after we've gotten sort of a closer look in those little jars. Oh, and then one other trap I was going to mention called a blue vein trap, which I'll put a picture up here, which also is a soapy water thing in that yellow bowl. So those are some of my supervillain special power tools. Okay, question number 2. Every superhero needs a nemesis. Name your bookish enemy, and what is your kryptonite? So for my bookish enemy, some people are naming characters who've done this tag, but some other people are talking about tropes, and so I just wanted to name sort of some tropes that I don't like. So in romance books in particular, I just really hate overhanded miscommunication between main characters as a way to drive the plot. I think that goes for some YA literature as well. I'm not opposed to it totally. I think it can be done well, but it's often, as I said, just overhanded and just is sort of taken to almost an absurd level, in my opinion. And then I often also don't like the sort of not like other girls trope or theme that's in, especially a lot of YA and maybe in some romance. That's also another thing where, you know, of course it can be done well. I think everything can be done well, but it often isn't. These are sort of overused plot mechanics or tropes that yeah, they're overused and often aren't done particularly well. Then my real life nemesis, my actual kryptonite, is the sun. Um, Look at this fair complexion. I'm a person who spends a lot of time outdoors and probably shouldn't if I cared about my skin health. So I am very careful with sunscreen, very careful with wearing the long sleeves, long pants, big hat, etc. But when you spend most of your recreational life outdoors and you spend most of your professional life outdoors during the summer months anyway, inevitably you get damage. So I'm going to be 33 next week, actually, only 33, but I already get spots frozen off my face. And my skin is sort of more and more sensitive to UV and to products as I grow older, probably because of the damage that's been done. So the sun is my nemesis. Rawr. Okay, what do we have next? So number 3, if you could wish for any superpower, what could it be? So other booktubers have been having amazing answers for this, and I want all the superpowers, but I have to go with the power of flight. That has always been my answer since I was a tiny kid. I often dream about flying, like I'm just sort of flying in my dreams, sort of Superman style. You just kind of take off. So I'm going to have to go with that, even though there are so many other good answers by everyone who's been doing this tag. And then number 4 by day, your mild-mannered Clark Kent. So what's your day job? I already covered that when I was revealing myself as a villain. Then number 5 is name your favorite bookish villain. And I'm back. That brief interlude brought to you by, I believe, my kid coming home from the playground. And me having to jump back onto parent duty. And then, as you saw, if you stuck around, we went camping over the weekend, and so I wasn't able to finish filming and get this up on Saturday. So here we are, it's Monday, I'm finishing filming. So I believe I was on question 5, which is name your favorite bookish villain. So my favorite bookish villain is a character named Raistlin Magir from the original Dragonlance Chronicles. That were written, I think, in like the 80s by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. I've mentioned them many times on my channel. I often work them into a tag. And he's my favorite villain because he's just unabashedly a villain. So in those books, at least in the main original trilogy, the Dragonlance Chronicles trilogy, all of the main characters are sort of childhood friends. They all grew up together, and then one of them goes bad, and nobody really believes that he's evil. And it's interesting because he also he does struggle with essentially chronic illness. I mean, it's a fantasy world, so nothing's really explained. They don't have medicine, but he is a chronically ill person. And one of the main threads of his character is people sort of not taking him seriously because of that. And then he ends up being the most important person ever in like the history of the world. He's great. And everybody's sort of surprised. And Raistlin is like, you all are idiots. I've been awesome the entire time. But yeah, so he's just unabashedly evil, uses people for his own ends, tells them repeatedly, I actually don't really like you all and would toss you to a dragon if it benefited me. Yeah, and then he basically becomes a god, I think. So he's awesome. I love him. He does have a little bit of the sort of misunderstood bad boy vibe going on. So if I were to encounter him for the first time now as an adult, I think I would be a little bit less in love with him because I am not really a fan of that trope, which we see play out in real life as well, of, you know, sort of the misunderstood man when really a lot of the reasons he's misunderstood are his own failings in communication and relationship building. So I would not be as big a fan of that if I were to read that book for the first time now, but I still love Raistlin Magir. All right, that's kind of a long answer. Okay, number 6 is Defenders of the Earth Unite. Which bookish superhero would you collaborate with? I try not to mention Harry Potter in my tags, but this would have to be Hermione Granger. I love her so much. She is, in my opinion, maybe one of the most like undersold, overlooked heroes, heroines, because I mean, she essentially sort of carries Harry Potter through all of his crap. And I don't know, to me, she's the real hero of the series. She's never really allowed to shine as much as her sort of background character development should allow her to. That author, who I don't like to name, puts a lot of effort into really developing her as a character, and then when we get to sort of the end trials and things, you know, Harry Potter is the chosen one who saves the day, but it should be Hermione. Also, she is the epitome of a bookish person, and we would have so much to talk about, and we would just hang out in the library and whisper at each other, which is what I did with my best friend growing up. So, yes, definitely Hermione. Um, Okay, and then finally, number 7 is tag others. Be sure to share your superpowered tag with at least one other small channel. So yeah, so these are all channels that are, I guess some of them are a bit bigger than me maybe, but my size or smaller, but sort of 5 people originally just initially came to mind as like, oh, I think this person would really have fun with a superhero tag. So in terms of dramatization, the channels I really want to see do this would be Jess at Jess the Book Freak, because of how creative all of her tags are. She usually, yeah, sort of dramatizes it and acts things out, and it's great. And then Mary and Joe over at Book Buds, I think you guys would have a lot of fun with this tag, so I would love to see you do it. And then and then Amy at A Star Reads. Yeah, I think also no pressure to like dramatize or pretend Amy, but I could see you having a lot of fun with this in that way. But I'm also just really curious what your answers would be. And then along those lines, Laura at the Reading Mushroom and Danny at Literary Lion. I think you both have probably a lot of opinions about sort of superheroes and villains in the books that you read. And it'd also be curious to learn more about you with the more personal questions included in this tag. So I hope you all do it, but no pressure. And if anybody watching this is not familiar with those channels, please go check those out. They are some of my favorite channels that I basically watch all the videos that come out on those channels. And with that, I will, yeah, sign off. Thanks for watching my tag, and see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.